Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. And today, as part of our celebration of a year of the Salisbury Independence, we have the man who I think has done the most to make the Salisbury Independent look different and feel different and distinguish it in our community. And that is our photographer, Tony Weeg.
Hello there, how are you?
Welcome to One on One.
Thanks for having me. I didn't expect that accolade, but
Well, how does this happen that, like, you and I, mostly you, make such a difference in the community the way you do through photographs? How did we get here?
like I tell everybody, it pretty much started at Starbucks, North Salisbury, or South Salisbury.
South Salisbury Starbucks.
You and I, a spring and a half ago, I think, or whatever.
4 or 5 spring and a half
somewhere
ago.
in there, talked about these crazy ideas of leaving our careers and you making a newspaper and me doing photography. And you said, hey, look, can you help me sometime? And I said, sure, I'll help you. I have no idea what's going to happen in my career.
Now, what was your career?
So for 20 years, I was a web developer.
So you were positioned career-wise where people should be for the future.
Yeah, pretty much. I was in one of those industries that if you looked at any of the magazines that talked about good careers to be in, that was one of the ones to be there. Web developer was high on the list. College was a joke for me. High school was a joke for me as well. Mom saw all that and said, hey, you should be a web developer. So I did it. And here I am today as a photographer.
But, so you put that aside. Now, you used to tell me you were going to be a photographer, and I would just, like, roll my eyes and then walk out to the car and then have a good laugh.
Because everybody says they're going to be a photographer as soon as they get their first camera.
Because I know how hard it really is. But somehow, you're able to do this.
Yeah, and I think it's probably because I love being around people, meeting new people, feeling their energy, and just showing them how beautiful they can be on a picture. Because, you know, as most people would believe it, most people think they look ugly in a picture. But the joy of showing somebody after the fact how beautiful they can actually be is priceless, really.
Now, I started as a photographer, but I was not a good photographer. I was good at static things or, you know, traffic accidents. I could take that. People in public meetings, I could take that. But I've never been able to take people's portraits worth a darn. And I watched Bryce Stump for a lot of years take control of subjects so that he could shoot a portrait. And I think you do the same thing.
Yeah, for me, it's, and I don't always start this way, and I actually kind of have to remind myself that this is the best way to get somebody to smile, or this is the best way to get somebody to look deep. But what I do is I try to take them on a mental trip through something that I hope is a good thing. If I'm shooting a grandmother, I have her talk about her grandkids before we start shooting. Or a husband and wife, I ask them how they met. If it's a child, I tell them, you know, tell your mother you love her. Or vice versa. And the smiles that you get in those instances and the looks that you get in those instances are unlike if you were to just say, hey, Greg, smile for me. It's not the same smile as if you talk about Annie.
Right.
We think about that.
Right.
So that's how I do it. That's it's no secret.
But somehow you've got to connect with that person to know what is going to stimulate that.
You do, and you got to do a little bit of research on your subjects. You can't just go into it blindly. I mean, if you did that, you just don't get that person. Like, you don't get the guts of that person. And I've had a lot of people tell me offline, well, really online, but in a private message, that they love the feeling that I get from people, and it's the coolest thing anybody ever told me is an artist I really, really respect, Scott Carney. He told me, he said, I was scrolling through my Facebook feed the other day and I saw a picture, and as it passed by, I knew it was a Tony Weeg.
Wow.
That was just,
wow.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Now, one of the things that motivated me to think about you for this Q&A idea is the photographs you take of your own kids. So it almost seemed like there was a year there where you got to practice on your family.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This, you know, people ask why I did this. Well, it started 41 years ago when I decided to be a photographer. When I was a kid, it was decided that I was going to be a photographer. So as my company sold in 2012, I had to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. It was 39. I had a baby on the way, due 3 months later, and my company was bought by a bigger company. Well, what do? You go back and you say, all right, what do I absolutely love to do? How can I pull it off? And then how can I see my children the most? Well, photographer was the easiest, that was the answer that came to my mind, and it was just no doubt. And now that I've got these daughters, I mean, what better muse than your own beautiful daughters to do this? And now we've got another child on the way, which is even crazier. I can't tell you what it's going to be because that's to be revealed on April 11th.
April 11th, I have to write that on my calendar.
I'll get in trouble if I reveal that. So I can't reveal that. So yeah, it's the girls are not the only inspiration that I've got for photography, but they helped me figure out the settings. And being a programmer or geek, whatever, photography was just a number of settings and then mastering light. Once I mastered light, or I haven't mastered light, I'm learning light. I've mastered the settings. Now I'm trying to put those two together.
One of the things that strikes me too is not just people, but scenery that you're able to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm not someone who ever thought downtown Salisbury was a beautiful place, but somehow you find beauty in downtown Salisbury. Talk about that.
Well, it's cool because you don't need any sort of setting anywhere to make somebody look beautiful. You just need them. So be it Salisbury downtown, or if Mardella had a downtown, it doesn't really matter. A good photographer is not defined by the camera or the location or even really the subject. It's the lights you've got that you can use, and then taking that person and finding the right angle to make them look as beautiful as possible. And the background really shouldn't matter as long as it's not crossing through their head or going, whatever. If you've got some sort of thing in the background, it really doesn't matter what it's like. It could be the ugliest one. In fact, I've got a cover for a magazine coming out, and the backdrop is the ugliest room I have found in downtown Salisbury. But we turned it into a cover, like a cover that I've been told we could probably put on any number of national publications and it would fly. So that was another high praise that came recently. And then when that cover comes out, I'll be pretty darn proud. I mean, I'm proud enough being on the Salisbury Independent all the time, but this other cover is pretty cool too.
Well, you shot Susan Purnell for us in front of her store, and that's the classic thing that you would do.
Yeah.
But she was so beautiful the way you composed her, and even in the background, I find myself, there's this beautiful, successful woman in this photograph, but in the background, there's the old Shore Bank building, and there's like an architecture, and she fits in that environment somehow.
Yeah, and it's like I said, you kind of have to take what you've got around you and mold your subject into that scene, and not try to break that scene and do something that scene doesn't call for.
Right.
Susan, when we were shooting inside, mentioned to me that it was her father or somebody that said it was so bare on the downtown plaza you could go bowling.
Right.
Well, you know me, if you mention something like that, we're going to go bowl on the plaza. Well, I took Susan Purnell onto the plaza and mimicked bowling, and it actually turned out to be a great shot.
Was really
I think
cool.
you actually used the picture in the
did.
magazine
Yeah.
or the newspaper, which
Yeah.
I didn't expect, but when you did, I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to keep sending Greg some cool stuff.
Yeah, because it fit the quote.
Correct.
So you could tell what was going on.
Correct.
And another one I love was
and again, that's researching your subject and knowing a little bit about before you go in there.
My old colleague Eric Saylor, who's an artist,
Mm-hmm.
you shot him in that alley there by Chip DeShiel's law firm where everyone cuts through.
Yes.
But I would never think of that as a photogenic kind of location to shoot someone. But it's an utterly, we talk about light, but it's just an utterly compelling photo.
It's pretty cool because when I took Eric down there, he was like, why are we going down to this alley? And you even told me before, when you shoot somebody up against a brick wall, it looks like you're shooting them in jail.
Right.
Well, that's great and all, but I love those leading lines, and I love the starkness of the I'm a black and white fan, first of all.
Right.
And the starkness of the dark deep red and the white ground in between, or the white mix in between, plus Eric's outfit and Eric's hair and his skin, it just worked perfectly. And then I knew it when I saw it. I said, Eric, this is the one, man. This is just the one. And speaking of Eric Saylor, shameless self-promotion here. Third Friday in April, Eric Saylor's coming to my studio and releasing the Downtown Salisbury print. And you got to come. It's going to be beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah. In fact, I know you got one of them.
I do. He just gave me one.
Yes,
I hung it up proudly in my office.
When he brought it to my office, I was checking it out. I looked at it. I was like, oh, maybe he brought this here for me. I flipped it around to the back and it said, Greg Bassett. Oh, this is really beautiful, Eric. I'm sure Greg's going to love it.
And in fact, Eric doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to try to get him to design that somehow for the flag of the newspaper because we're looking maybe for
Ooh,
something
like a
to get
new-
rid of the seagull
Ooh.
and maybe have that the downtown
masthead.
look. Yeah, there's something a little bit different with the masthead.
Oh,
But
it'd be
for the
awesome
1 year
idea.
anniversary to try to
Oh, it'd be awesome.
yeah. So I'm gonna when Eric gets back from vacation, I'm gonna try to
Eric, pay
challenge
attention.
him
Read
to,
this.
to do that.
That's awesome.
Um,
Great idea.
Who's your favorite person that you've shot for the Q&A for the Independent so far? Which one have you been surprised about or turned out better than you thought or that you liked?
I'll tell you exactly who it was because I just got the chills from talking about it
Oh.
and thinking about it. It was Hal Chernoff.
Hal Chernoff, the boxer guy.
Hal Chernoff. It was the day. In fact, I got chills everywhere now. The day before we were leaving for the Dominican Republic, I was going there on a photo shoot for myself to shoot a golf course down there. You said, "Hey, can you shoot Hal real quick? I got to feature him next week while you're gone." Well, okay. I told him I had a half hour or 15 minutes. It'd be in and out. Greg, I left an hour and a half later. I had a life-changing moment. He told me stories that his life story, first of all. You know, it seems like I do a half interview on these things, half photography, half interview. But when he laid out to me the story of his life and his family and kids, and the strength that he has now after all of that,
Yeah.
boy, oh boy, it changed everything. The way I look at my daughters, the way I look at a lot of things in life, and certainly the way I look at Hal. I mean, some of the pictures that I took of Hal that week were, to this day, I mean, I still feature them up on my TV in my studio. I mean, that cycles through pictures every day, all day. And Hal is prominent in there. Those were deeply emotional and woo.
Yeah, now you learned about him
Still gets me.
in a different way than what I did. When I interviewed him, I focused on the service to the community and working
sure.
with the kids and that kind of stuff. But with the photographs, I could tell they were very personal. You've got him playing a guitar.
Oh, yeah.
You've got
He's
him
in a boxing ring.
You've got him working out in the ring.
Yeah.
You've got you know, I would feel silly as a photographer saying, "Go ahead and make a fist," that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But whenever I put Hal in the paper, that's the photo I use because it defines him. But he's one of those guys who can make a fist and it looks cool. It doesn't look like some goofy guy making a fist.
He looks like that old boxer from Boston that you
Right.
see on an old movie or something like that, like not Bobby De Niro, but like Bobby De Niro's cousin.
Right.
I mean, it just got that look, and it's the thing is, it's not contrived, and that's why it looks so real and so right. Is because that's Hal's a fighter. I mean, to go what he went through in life,
Yeah,
I don't know how he did it.
yeah.
I really, really don't.
And I love how he inspires the kids.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you take the kids off the street, you put them in something that they can actually be productive. And, you know, not every one of them turns out. You know, Fernando was a big thing. His brother Alexis is now going on the same, maybe even better trajectory. I don't know exactly the standings of Alexis. But even if you don't get that kid to go all the way up through the ranks, you still touch them. And
Yeah.
little tiny connections like that where you can infect somebody's life with some bit of positivity, absolutely changes everything. I tell my daughter this on the way to school. Infect good. Go infect good today.
Wow.
It makes a difference. It really does.
And you took the picture that's my favorite picture of all time. And I tell this to people all the time. They're like, they don't get it. But you took a picture inside the old standpipe.
Yes.
Looked straight down the old standpipe downtown,
And said hi.
which I've always thought has been sort of a blighted kind of look about town, and now it's got this sort of historic thing. There's going to be a renovation. I saw in the city's capital plan. There's actually some money devoted to fixing
Really?
it. Yeah, so that could be really cool.
Hope it doesn't get messed up.
So we'll write a lot about that. I mean, that'll be a lot of fun. But you actually got in that thing and took a picture, and it's so cool. It's still my favorite.
Well, I love the standpipe, and I've always loved the standpipe, just like you. You
Yeah.
see it, you come down to Salisbury, it's there. One of the coolest things is at sunset, if we've got storm cover, because you know we get the best sunsets around here, and right as the sun gets to the horizon, because it's not impeded, we get this beautiful strip of sun that comes through the clouds and under the clouds. Well, to tie this all in, if you're downtown Salisbury at the right time, during the right part of day, the top of the standpipe gets this beautiful orange glow from the sun.
Yeah.
And you can't really photograph it because it really wouldn't come across. You kind of just have to be there. And so I've always loved that thing. Well, you asked me to go film it. I go film it. And I was like, you know what? I'll shoot it this way. I'll shoot it that way. I'll get Salisbury in the foreground, background. But then I was like, you know what? The real shot is looking straight down this thing.
Yeah.
Nobody's seen straight down that
I didn't
thing.
even know it was open at the top. I had no idea.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
I had no clue it took. I figured some dead birds up top,
Yeah.
some wiring or whatever.
Right.
Wide open.
Yeah.
And nothing in the bottom.
Yeah.
I mean, there may have been some,
Well, there's water. You can see the reflection of the
a
water
little
on
bit
the
of
bottom.
stuff down there, but
Yeah.
you'd expect something. But
Yeah. But just that it's lit up, that you can see 40, 50, 60 feet down, whatever it is, and
It
there's
had
a
to be the right
reflection.
time of day for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, had to wait for the sun to be right and all that good stuff.
It just blew me away. It just blew me away.
I still love it. That's good.
You're somebody, you could live anywhere. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
why are you in Salisbury? Why have you committed to staying here?
Well, that's a long, crazy question. But the answer is this. Like most of us that grew up here. Well, first of all, I'm a military brat. So I've been, Germany, Baltimore, Tennessee. I was in 3 third grades. Finally ended up at St. Francis for my final third grade, and I've been here since 3rd grade. Well, I've not lost, but a lot of my closest best friends have all moved away. A lot of them are south, west, and in warmer spots, and they send me Instagram pictures and Facebook pictures all the time of how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I want to go visit those places too. But number one, my parents are here, and I don't want to leave mom and dad.
Yeah.
Number two, and I saw this on somebody's wall. I'm not much of a religious person, but I feel like it was a religious quote, and it said, "Bloom where you are planted." Well, I can't. If I'm never going to leave here, then I might as well make this place as absolutely killer as I possibly can, and do everything I can to put my foot in the door, my 2 cents in to make this work. So that's how I ended up in downtown Salisbury. That's why I did it, because I knew that, number one, I could grow my photography business there. It was a natural, location. That's a fantastic location in the heart of everything, on the ground floor.
Yeah, you have an office right on the downtown plaza.
Yeah, I mean, it's right next. It's 5 doors from Kuhn's. It's 4 doors from Kunpai. It's 3 doors from Main Roots.
It's in the old White and Leonard building.
Correct. It's 1887 is the year that building was built, and I believe that was after the first fire, before the second fire, or somewhere in there.
And when I was a kid, in September, early September, late August, you get in the car, you drive to Salisbury to White and Leonard to buy your school supplies.
Oh, I remember vividly getting my first Pentel,
Right.
whatever those pens are, the mechanical pencils.
Right.
So excited about going to White and Leonard. I mean,
Yeah.
we got here early enough to remember that store and
Yeah.
the white erasers that you could get from there. I mean, it was like a kid's dream.
And now your office essentially is in there.
So now my office is
Your
there,
studio.
and the day I saw that office, it was a former recording studio, and Garrett left. Garrett's off into bigger and better things. I told my wife, I said, "Babe, you're going to think I'm crazy." And that's probably true, but I don't want anybody else to get this photography studio. I want it to be my photography studio. Well, by Sunday evening, I had texted Brad, and Joey. By Monday morning, I forget whether it was Joey or Brad, took me over there.
They're the guys from DevCro.
Yeah, there's the guys from Devrico.
DevCro, right.
And these guys are really doing a whole lot to revitalize downtown, and major props to them for that.
Right.
I never gave the key back. There was never a question in my mind. I didn't even need to go and look and see it. I just wanted my wife to go see it.
Right.
We did some demolition thanks to the guys at Glad Construction. They helped me out a little bit. We're trading for some photography work and some construction work, which is a great thing in Salisbury. It's alive and well.
As long as you're IRS compliant, everything will be fine.
Oh, very IRS compliant. It's equal trade. It's equal fair trade, and we're all paying the taxes on it.
Good.
Yeah. And so here we are, and it's actually going well. I'm not even into my first year yet.
Right.
And I can tell you the number of weddings from last year to this year has tripled. And I don't owe it all to being on downtown Salisbury, but it's a big thing being on downtown Salisbury.
Right, just the visibility and being part of it.
Absolutely. And now, I'm right in the thick of things. Like, I've helped sign some things supporting new businesses there. And, I don't have a big attraction where people come visit me every day, but people who came to me yesterday or 2 days ago to sign a wedding contract went to Kunpai after for dinner. So it helps. We all help each other down there, and it's pretty cool, man.
Right. And the Third Friday, you're a big player in Third Friday.
Huge. I mentioned Eric Saylor earlier.
Right.
We got a big lineup this year. We've got Eric Saylor first. We've got the Skate Deck Art Show in August. We've got Veronique Dieriker back for another show in October, November. She's
amazing.
She's out of this world.
Yeah.
Her art is prolific, incredible, intense, colorful, whimsical. It's everything.
Yeah.
But we're starting off with Eric, and Eric is as unique as it gets. Him and I, he came over to talk for a 15-minute and measure the studio space. 2.5 hours later, he left, and my wife said, "What were you guys talking about?" I said, everything.
I can't think of two guys who love Salisbury more, though, than you and Eric.
Everything. We talked about everything. Yeah, man, we love Salisbury. And you know what? When I was probably 25 or 26, I hated it. I wanted to get out. Couldn't stand it. But there's beauty here. There's beauty in the quaintness and the small townness of it. Sure, we've got some issues. Every town has issues. It's magnified now because you've got, an 8-hour news cycle? We're joking about it earlier. It was a week. Now it's an 8-hour news cycle. When you go to sleep, you never know what's going to be the next news of the day, and it's always right there.
Right.
So we hear about all the problems in Salisbury, but if you focus on just the problems, you're never going to get past that. And there's a great group of young guys and young girls down in downtown Salisbury, myself included. I may be on the upper end of that youngness scale, but we're all in our mid-30s and 40s, and we don't give up.
Yeah.
We're not going to listen to that. We're just going to plow through this and make this work because there's no reason it can't. We've seen the Annapolises, the Columbias, the Charlottesvilles, the Greenvilles, all the little medium-sized cool towns
Right.
that we know Salisbury can be. So I'm not giving up on it. No way.
Well, you know, and what I think of is too, like we talk about the White and Leonard thing, how special it was to go to White and Leonard, and so like for my daughter, her memory is gonna be going down Third Friday and seeing your studio and being in there. This is where Tony Weeg used to be, like 40 years from now, 50 years from now. That's what her conversation could be, and it's
pretty wild.
You know, where my little office is, I sit where Paige Kelly used to cut my hair.
Wow, that's what we used to go in down there?
Yeah, it was a barbershop. So, you know, I haven't. That's as far as I've gone.
I know. And here's the thing.
It's just bizarre.
Because you showed me a picture of this on the corner where Echelon is today.
Right.
Used to be the big photography
Walt
shop.
Thurston, Mr. Thurston's.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I've met a relative of his.
Yeah.
Real cool. And the history, I love being part of that history, and that's what kind of led me to put just my name on my pictures. You know, like an artist signs his paintings, you know, I wanted to have one little thing on there so that when I'm gone, these pictures that are out in the world on people's walls and people's photo albums are going to have my little signature in the bottom. And that's, you know, maybe someday somebody will look on Wikipedia and my name may be there because they saw it on a picture that their grandmother or grandfather had, and then they'll figure out where we were in downtown Salisbury.
Right.
And that's how I could make my part of history.
You mentioned weddings, and
yeah,
as someone who's dabbled in photography, or actually, I guess I started in photography, but when I go to a wedding, I can't look at the wedding photographer because the stress is just overwhelming for me what that person's going through, because you can't blow that assignment.
You can't.
At all.
There's no retake.
Right. How do you, now you shoot a lot of weddings, how do you do that? How do you have the personality to do that?
So at my first wedding, I took my D90, which is a very, very consumer camera,
yeah,
and a rented lens. If it broke, I was done. If anything happened, I was done. And I went and shot it. And I learned a lot. I cut my chops on a very crazy one in an under hotel place, almost like a dungeon in Ocean City. I learned a lot. Nobody's seen those pictures yet, except for the couple.
Right.
Well, I used to be the kid at the weddings or the guy at the weddings that would look at the photographer and go, I can do that. God, I want to do this. I can't wait to do this. And now that I'm in the thick of things, I can tell you this very honestly. They're my favorite. Weddings are my absolute favorite. You've got a couple who's in love, so you've got a connection. You've got family that are weeping or happy or whatever, so you've got emotion. You've got usually beautiful scenes where you can take a big, giant, grand picture.
It's the biggest day of their life.
And that's what I love.
Yeah.
And you've got a bride and groom who are engaged to you because they want cool pictures, especially the bride.
Right.
Sometimes it's the groom too, but usually it's just the bride. And you're showing them something that everybody in their lineage after that are going to look at. You know, my grandparents had this cool picture of this grand staircase coming down, and my grandfather in his World War II military outfit, my grandmother in this very humble, simple wedding dress. And it sat on their thing by the TV forever, and I was so captured by it for my whole life. I looked at this thing and I was like, how did that photographer get that big staircase? Years down the road now I look back, it's a backdrop. But still, it was so beautiful and so awesome. And, you know, weddings are just fun, man. And to put them in black and white, that just it's the icing on the cake.
You took that one in Rehoboth Beach.
Yeah.
Which is the greatest wedding photograph I've ever seen.
Yes, it is.
And you were like the second shooter on that. You weren't even.
I was second shooter.
You weren't even the guy.
The most amazing Laura Dye. Thank you very much for everything, Laura Dye.
We love Laura Dye.
Without you, I would not be where I am today.
There would be no Salisbury Independent without Laura Dye.
We love Laura Dye.
Yeah.
Okay. So Laura was the first shooter on that wedding.
And she doesn't have cable, so she won't see this.
No, she won't, sadly. We'll get it to her somehow. She said, hey, try this. And she takes the off-camera flash that we had that evening, because I was shooting them in a silhouette with just backdrop, you know, the beautiful sunset that we had, them as a silhouette. Laura said, hey, try this. Kenny Pusey taught me this. Again, thank you, Kenny. Off-camera flash over here, fired off. Luckily, I had everything else right because, I mean, in the scramble of that moment, you don't know what you're going to get. The wind's blowing, friends are calling them to go back into the dance hall. But it ended up being such a great shot that I now have that at Kuhn's Jewelers.
Do you?
Kuhn's Jewelers inside on the wall. Those guys were lucky and gracious enough, I'm lucky enough, to give me a huge 6x7 foot space. Me and two other photographers. A 6x7 foot space with 4 giant pictures that are beautiful wedding shots. And then this year I'll refresh them with 4 more shots from this year. So it's exciting, man. It's exciting. That picture really capped off that space back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
What's next for Salisbury? Where do you want to, I talk all the time about I'm the generation who didn't do anything to help. That people before us did some amazing stuff, like Connie Strott, certainly with and Lee Whaley coming up with the Third Friday thing. Jamie Heater, people of your generation are just behind actually implementing the thing, the Jake Days of the world. Where's all this going to go?
So, politically, I see our good friend Jake Day being the mayor.
You really do?
I honestly do. I think he's a perfect fit for it. I think it's the next step on his trajectory. I think, sadly, we're going to lose him at some point in time to something more regional, and I honestly could see Jake national. Although Jake has talked to me about this, and I'm not sure he's got national aspirations, but I think everybody says that because they don't want to seem a little over anxious for that. But I think that now that we've got a good city council working together, now that we've got a mayor that's working with the city council, and then some fresh blood maybe getting into the mayoral spot, we're headed for some really cool things, and things getting approved and things moving forward. Great ideas can lay stagnant and they never are anything. Well, to move it forward is another thing. Conviction is a huge thing, and having conviction is one of the best things you can possibly have. Do what you say you're going to do. Well, I think Jake's one of those guys that does that, and it's no BS on the backside of it. With that, I believe and I hope we're going to see some angled parking on the downtown plaza.
I would love that.
I believe we're going to have it flow from the west side to the east side, so that all the traffic coming from the western side of the western neighborhoods that we've got come through the plaza rather than being redirected around the plaza. I think that the Atkins Memorial Monument thing that's in the middle may be moved over to Mill Street, and I hope we see a roundabout there. I honestly hope we see the...
Wouldn't that be great to have that roundabout there? Riverside and Carroll and Mill Street. I mean,
it'd be
it's
cool.
So obvious to me that would be a great thing.
It would be great. It'd be fantastic.
And Fred would love to have his monument there.
No doubt. Yeah. Fred, I'm not sure who you are, but I'm sure you're a great man to have that put there.
Fred was a great man, and actually when that monument went in long after Fred had passed, but...
My friend Mix told me some stories about this, and I believe his dad maybe had something to do with that monument, or somebody else's dad, I'm not sure.
It was the old E.S. Atkins, or the Atkins people. They basically built everything.
I'm looking forward to my side, our side of the downtown being our old town. And then on the other side in the library parking lot being a version of another new town downtown where we embellish the downtown with more people who live there, some cool shops on the bottom floor. Because it's the people who live around there and work around there that spend the money around there, that help the restaurants, the Main Roots, the Kunpais, the Mojos, the whatevers. So you get more residents. I think we're going to beef up everything down. The retail is going to go up. Everything's going to go up. So that's what I want to see. I want to see my side become old downtown, and the new side of that be the new side of downtown. Because, like I've told my wife, the thing that Salisbury needed, we've got one downtown strip. We need 4 this way and 4 that way and a couple blocks this way and that way to not be the French Quarter, but give us more options. And man, if I had my dream, every lawyer office would be on the 2nd floor and we'd have retail on the bottom floor. That's, don't take their space away, but do a little bit of a booting upstairs. Because people don't come in and spend money in law offices on a day-to-day basis by choice. They do it because they need it. There's a problem going on. I'd love to see some cool shops down there, some flair shops, some shops unique shops. Like Chicoteague has cool shops. Why can't Salisbury? We need more of that. More color.
Tony Weeg, I owe so much to this guy for the creation of The Independent. Helped to give the paper a unique look, and it's just been great working with him. And I think it just shows that I get inspired by creative people, I guess, smart people. So,
well, good, man. I'm glad to be inspirational for you.
So thank you for that. Another great episode here of One on One right here on Pack 14.